So good morning to you all. So
Good
before,
morning, sir.
yeah, good morning. So before we begin our formal lecture, so if you have any questions so on the slope stability analysis from any previous class, you are most welcome to ask. Anybody has any question? So in the last class, we were discussing about one of the mass procedures, slope stability analysis by mass procedure. So let us continue the same thing. So today we will discuss about another method. So that is on the friction circle method, so which is useful for both C and pi soils. So using the friction circle method, so how to determine the factor of safety value or how to determine the other parameters by the friction circle method. So I don't know whether you are already accustomed to the friction circle method during your undergraduate program or not. So if you are already have heard of all these lectures, you are most welcome to hear one more time. So here there are two things. First of all, so this is one of the simplistic method again. So this method is valid for both C cohesive soils as well as the frictional soils. Therefore, it is valid for both C and pi soils. So here I have taken a slope, so which is represented by the embankment of A, B, and C. So consider a failure plane. So that is A and C. So this is a failure plane. So failure plane. So this is a trial slip circle. So this is an assumed one because exact slip circle is very difficult to identify. So therefore we have taken some approximate slip circle passing through the two of the embankment. So A, B and C. Now suppose if this is the failure plane and assuming that the failure plane mode in the circular motion or the rotational failure. So then we have to have the center of the circle, that is O. That is O. So now suppose if you compare this method with the other methods, the additional component that involved is, so here something called the friction circle, a concept of friction circle, so has been used to determine the least possible factor of safety value. Least possible factor of safety value. So here I have taken the geometry of A, B and C. Suppose if I take the weight of it as W. So this is weight of the soil geometry A, B and C. A, B and C. Now you know the W acts as a driving force, while there is some kind of the resisting force. So that is in the form of a shear strength that develops all along the failure plane. So that is normally represented as cohesion. Cohesion per unit length. Suppose if you want to determine the total cohesion, multiply CD with the arc length, then you will get the total cohesion. Which otherwise CD is cohesion, so developed per unit length of the slip surface or unit width of the slip surface. Now having understood this one, the additional notion, the additional concept that evolved to solve this problem is, so at the center of the circle, at the center of the circle. Now suppose if you look at all the previous analysis, so as I told, we have taken only one critical slip circle for which the factor of safety is the least. It is assumed one. So in reality, it may not be. But suppose if I take so many number of circles, that means I have so many number of the center of the circles. So now, in order to understand how many number of circles, that is practically impossible. What they done is, instead of simply demarcating a simple point of the center of the circle, what they have done is they have taken a bigger circle, within which there may be a possibility of falling off the center of that particular slip circle. So that is, suppose if this is the center of this failure plane, they have considered another slip circle or another circle. So this is called as a friction circle. So this is called as a friction circle, and its radius they have considered as r sine phi. Its radius is considered as r sine phi, where r is the radius of the slip circle. Radius of the slip circle. Okay. Now, only thing is, suppose if you look at the radius of the friction circle, so this is a function of the r and this is a function of the pi. Function of the pi. But for a given material, the pi may be fixed, or else the other way around of understanding this one is, suppose if I vary the value of the pi, if I vary the value of the pi, that means I can able to consider different variety of the soils. Different variety of the soils. So suppose if I vary pi value, then I will get again n number of circles here, which may be a smaller circle, which may be a bigger circle. We do not know. Okay, but depending upon the soil type, you could able to determine the radius of this friction circle. So that means, so the diameter in one way represents the kind of the soil that is considered for the analysis purpose. Now, another major assumption that they made is, so now there is a suppose if I draw tangent from the friction circle. So this is how it passes through. So this is the tangent. So this is the tangent. Now here it is said that as per this method, so the resultant of, so this is, say, you can say F. So the resultant of the normal and the tangential force. The resultant of the normal and tangential force. So acting all along the failure surface, the alignment of this resultant passes or is a tangent to the friction circle. So that is the fundamental concept.
Sir, is there a rule for choosing the point of tangency?
No, it will vary. It will vary.
We can
Sir,
take
can
tangent
you,
from any point.
No, that's not possible. Any point is not possible.
sir, can
I,
you please repeat this sentence?
okay. See, suppose if I take at this point, okay, so there is a normal force and there is a tangential force. Okay, and the resultant is the R. Here I am taking this as a F. Resultant is F. So as for this analogy, the resultant at the line of action of the resultant is a tangent to the friction circle. So the line of action of the resultant is a tangent to the friction circle. So that's the fundamental concept. Now another major assumption is, suppose if I draw a center line, so where it passes, and the angle between the line which passes through the center of the circle and the line where it cuts the resultant line of action, the angle between this line and this line is approximately pi. Okay, so first is the line of action of the resultant is a tangent to the friction circle method. Then again, suppose if I draw a parallel line or in line normal to the failure plane, through the center of the circle. So the angle, the difference in angle between the normal line and so the resultant line is approximately pi. Okay. Now there is another assumption also that made, that is, suppose now here, suppose if I take, I can assume two things. A, to C. Suppose if I take A to C, so A to C is a arc. AC can be represented as arc, which is nothing but your r theta. Now another assumption is that suppose if I take this ACD, I'm taking a separate diagram. So this is A and C. So the unit cohesion acts all along this line. Now another important thing is that the resultant of all unit cohesion is parallel to. So the resultant of all the unit cohesion, that is capital C, is parallel to line AC, which is called as a chord. This is arc and this is chord. So this is chord is represented as a bar, arc is represented as some you can say arc. This is arc and this is the chord length, arc length and chord length. So this is a mathematical way of representation. Okay, suppose if I take the free body diagram of AC in the form of a chord and in the form of an arc, so it is said that the resultant of all unit cohesion all along the arc is parallel to the chord length AC, and suppose if this is the resultant of chord, capital CD, and the lever arm distance from the center of the circle is approximately A. The lever arm distance from center of the circle to the line of action of the resultant CD is A. Okay, so here A is unknown, but A is represented in the form of, or A is simplified in the form of arc length or the chord length. That is one concept. Second thing is, now suppose if you look into the forces which are acting, another assumption is there is a concurrence of the forces W, F and CD. So another assumption is there is a concurrence of all the three forces, resultant F, the resultant of the CD and weight W. Now can you able to draw based by assuming the force of concurrence, the force polygon? Can you try it? So W, CD and F. So assuming the force of the point of concurrence, so can you able to draw the force polygon? Please try it. Okay, so try to track. So then there is another assumption. So here suppose if you take this free body diagram, so if you take the total CD, resultant of CD, capital CD is, so it is said that, so the cohesion acting per unit length multiplied by the chord length CD. So chord length CD. So if I take this force polygon, this resultant one. So when I take the resultant of all these things, which is parallel to the CD, and it is approximated as, so capital CD is equals to unit cohesion multiplied by the arc length, chord length, unit cohesion multiplied by the chord length. But however, the original capital CD is nothing but unit cohesion, so unit cohesion multiplied by the arc length, that is AC, unit length. Okay, now suppose if you take the moment equilibrium, so of this one, and if you equate, so it can be written in something else like capital CD into, so the resultant of this one is at a distance of A, so at a distance of A multiplied by, so this is small CD multiplied by arc length multiplied by R, so multiplied by R. So here the A can be determined as small CD into, so the arc length multiplied by R divided by, so capital CD can be written as again, so small CD multiplied by the chord length AC, So here, so these two will get cancelled out, so this will be simply written as, so R into arc length divided by the chord length, divided by the chord length. So this simplification is used to determine the resultant of CD acting from the center of the circle. So now if you look at, so the A, so that is lever arm distance for the resultant of capital CD, E, that is A is a function of the radius of the slip circle as well as the length of the arc divided by the length of the chord. Now if you examine closely, the arc length is always greater than the chord length. That means this ratio of AC arc length by the chord length is always greater than the unity. That means the lever arm distance of the resultant of all the unit cohesion forces is little bit away from the radius of the slip circle. Okay, so that's what is the meaning of this. A is equals to R into AC arc by AC chord length. Okay, so this is another simplification for determining or identifying at what distance from the center of the circle the resultant CD acts. Now as I told, so there are three forces here. So by assuming the concurrence of the force polygon, so the first one is the vertical force W, okay, while the second one is the inclined force F. So this is F, and the third one is CD. So capital CD. This is how we can able to draw the force polygon. So based on the weight of the component, the resultant of the tangential and normal force of the shear strength, and the resultant of the cohesion force. So this is how one can able to draw the force polygon. Okay. Now here I can able to determine the weight of the soil mass, but it is little difficult to determine the F component. But you look at another terminology that is in the form of a CD. That is unit cohesion or the resultant cohesion. And here, suppose if I look at the direction of each force that is acting, so everything is known. W is in the vertical direction, and F, the angle between F and vertical also can be determined here. The angle between CD can also be determined. Okay, so therefore the direction of all the three forces are known. And magnitude of only W is known. So this magnitude is known and all the directions are known. So suppose if I know among these three force polygons, if I know only one thing and angle, that is directions, then I can able to determine the other parameter by following the sine law. By following the sine law. So from here I can able to determine the CD parameter. If I know the W, I can able to determine the CD. CD. While this CD is represented in the form of CD by gamma H. So that is the stability number. That is stability number, which is again made as a function of several other parameters. So like since you are also determining the lever arm distance A, but which is a function of the value something called as alpha, then slope angle beta, and the angle of internal friction phi. So and other parameters. What is other parameter is there here? These things. Okay. So your cohesion term is again related to the stability term. So here the basic aim of all this methodology is, if I know the friction angle of the soil, yeah.
Sir, here CD is unit place.
Here it is unit cohesion.
No, sir, here CD equal to CD divided by gamma S. The CD is unit place, sir, no, because CD is kilonewton per meter square. Gamma H is also kilonewton per meter square. Cancel and no unit.
No, that's okay. But so this is, if you understand our previous derivation. So this is where we arrive now for stability number. So as you said correctly, but this is what we have derived from the previous class, CD by gamma H. Okay, but this is again a function of, so the alpha, beta and internal friction and other parameters.
But sir, it should not equal to CD, na, sir.
No, it's not equal. It's not equal. Okay. So now here this is a total cohesion, but total cohesion so can be converted into unit cohesion, but multiplying the length. So, but if I know the weight of the component, and I can able to determine the resultant cohesive force. From there, I can able to determine the unit cohesion. But as we know that the unit cohesion, so in the form of a stability number is related with the CD by gamma H. Now let us also try to understand why should we relate this with the height. Now here you are dealing with an embankment of certain height. Okay, so this is height of the embankment. So you have considered the internal friction angle phi, the cohesion of the soil CD, but nowhere you have considered the height of the embankment. So, but height of the embankment is also one of the critical important parameter. So where the CD should be function of the H. That is possible only when you take the stability number. Okay. So again, so the stability number is CD by gamma H. So which can be correlated as a function of the alpha, beta, pi, and pi. So these are the parameters. Okay. So this is a simple concept of friction circle method. Okay, so here also now, suppose since the CD by gamma H is a function of the alpha, beta and pi, so again it is related with the stability number. So there are some kind of a predefined course have been developed. So as a function of the stability number and as a function of the pi value and as a function of the beta. So as a function of the beta. Okay, so all these predefined charts are already available in any of the books which can be referred to, and thereby we can able to come back or back calculate the value of the cohesion that is required to drive the slope to failure, or to determine how much is the minimum cohesion value required so that the slope is stable or safe. Okay, so any other questions? So this is what all about the friction circle method. So there is a lot more discussion we can make it. But so when suppose if you go for some kind of the tutorial on this one, then you can better understand much more about the friction circle method. So I will try to explain the few more concepts of the friction circle method when we do some kind of the tutorial. Okay, so let us try to understand the fundamentals behind all these methods as of now in this class. So anybody has any question? Okay. Okay, so this is all about the mass procedures for determining the factor of safety. Now, the other way or other method of determining the factor of safety is the method of slices. So now let us discuss about the method of slices. So when you talk about the method of slices, you will get more than 15 to 20 number of methods to determine the factor of safety by method of slices. And of course, nowadays, whatever the method that the people are developing, so all methods are in the form of a method of slices only. So very few efforts are made for mass procedures because of its inherent disadvantage. Okay, so we are not properly able to inbuilt the interaction of the soil particles. Where when you consider the method of the slices, that facility so is there. Now the another advantage of this one is, suppose in the mass procedure, one of the fundamental assumption is that so the entire slope is homogeneous. So in mass procedure, so what we made an inherent assumption is the entire slope is homogeneous and the angle, so the angle beta is a uniform. That means it's a single slope, or you can say uniform slope. On the other hand, what if my slope angle is different? Say there is one angle, so there is another angle. Say this is my surface, so this is beta 1 while this is beta 2, and where the properties are gamma 1, so C1 and pi 1, so gamma 2, C2, pi 2, and gamma 3, C3 and pi 3, where the soil is non-homogeneous, as well as the slope angle is not uniform. So in these cases, so more probably you may be able to determine the factor of safety by mass procedure, but it is so complicated. So it makes it really the all analytical equation so complicated. Okay, so in this case, the best way is the method of the slices. So what they have done is, So instead of taking the entire soil mass as a single geometry, they have divided this soil into so many number of slices. So many number of slices. Okay. So you can make any number of slices. So it is immaterial because the only computational program is solving all the analytical equations. So therefore, you can assume any number of circles. But one condition is that, and another thing is that the width of each slice. So the width of each slice. Either you assume uniform or non-uniform, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. But most of the methods say that if you assume uniform width, so it is little bit advantageous in the form of a calculation. Okay, but there is no impediment to assuming non-equal width of the slice. You are still allowed to assume non or unequal width of the slice. You can do anything. Everything is welcome in case of the method of the slices. Now, how you do the analysis? Now, when you talk about the method of the slices, the commonly used method that you are discussing is so ordinary method of the slices. So ordinary method of slices and Bishop's method. So Bishop's method. Then there are several. Bishop and Morgenstern and Price. So several methods are there depending upon the field conditions that are going to be arise. But the horizon has started from the ordinary method of the slices. It was further improved by the Bishop method. The fundamental difference between these two methods is, suppose if I take any one slice, now there is another assumption. So in our method of the slices is, since you are dividing the given geometry into so many number of the slices, but if you look at the bottom width of each slice, it's supposed to be arc because you are assuming the rotational failure. But the assumption is that it is an approximate straight line. It's not an arc. It is approximate straight line. So this is another assumption in the method of the slices. Now here I have taken the small slice. So A, B, C and D. Suppose if I draw any free body diagram, the first component is W, that is weight of the slice A, B, C, D. Now another component is when a driving force of W exists, so there develops the normal force and the tangential force. So TR and NR, normal force and the tangential force. Now along with this one, so since this is a slice, so there acts again on the slice the normal force and the tangential force. So if you take any slice and draw a free body diagram, so this is how it looks like: A, B, C and D. A, B, A, C and D. Okay. So E1, T1 and E2, T2 are normal and tangential force acting on either side of each slice. So sometimes you may see that instead of this writing as delta T, that is T1 minus T2, or delta E, so that is E1 minus E2. So don't get confused. If you refer to some books, they may write instead of the T1, T2 or E1, E2 as delta T or delta E. So delta T is nothing but T1 minus T2, delta E is nothing but E1 minus E2. Okay. Now, in ordinary method of the slices, the fundamental assumption is, suppose if I take the resultant of the E1, E2 and T1, T2. If I take the resultant of E1, E2 and T1, T2, say I am designating this as R1 and R2. So as per ordinary method of the slices, so the line of action of R1 and R2, they will coincide. So thereby they don't make any kind of a movement. They won't make any kind of movement. So that's how in the ordinary method of the slices. So the reactions are the forces acting on either side of the slice are nullified, are not taken into account. So in the ordinary method of the slices, we do not consider the E1 T1 and E2 T2 acting on either side of the slices. Those are grossly ignored. Whatever they have taken is only a simple free body diagram, that is W, the normal force and tangential force acting at the bottom of the slice. At the bottom of the slice. Okay, while the Bishop has modified the ordinary method of the slices by considering T1, T2 and E1, E2 are accounting for E1, E2 and T1, T2. That's why it is called as a modified Bishop's method, or simple Bishop's method, or modified Bishop's method. Okay. So now are we able to understand the difference between ordinary method and Bishop's method? Okay.
Sir, please repeat about Bishop method.
Okay. See, in case of the ordinary method of the slices, now suppose if I take any free body diagram of one slice, so there acts the normal component or the weight of the element A, B, C, D, and the reactive forces, that is NR and TR at the bottom. So these are the reverse. This is not NR. So this is NR and this is TR. NR and TR. Okay. Yeah, NR and TR, and the side forces E1, E2, T1 and T2. So on both sides of the slice. In the ordinary method of the slices, it is assumed that if I take the resultant of E1 T1 and T2 E2, so the line of action of these resultant forces, they will coincide. They will coincide. Thereby, they do not contribute for the factor of safety. While in Bishop's method, so he overcome that assumption. So by not taking the coincidence of the resultants. So he has actually considered E1 T1 and E2 T2. E1 T1 and E2 T2. So that's the difference between ordinary method of the slices and the Bishop's method.
And sir, what is E1, T1 and E2, E2?
See, suppose if I take any small slice now. So if you take any two slice, when you take the free body diagram, or say, for example, if this is the weight component, the interaction of this on the adjacent, say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Say for example, if you take the slice 1, its interaction with slice 2 is derived in the form of the normal force and the tangential force on the face of the slice. Okay.
Means sir, these are contact force, na sir?
No, they are not a contact forces. Contact forces are altogether different. So they are interactive forces. The ideal term to be used is interactive. Contact forces.
Interference force. Sir.
Okay, you can say interference force. Same interaction.
Okay, sir.
Okay. So now, suppose now if you compare the mass procedure with the method of the slices, now you can able to understand clearly the difference. In the mass procedure, we have simply ignored the interaction between one element of the soil to another element. So that is overcome in the method of the slices. And how it has been accounted for in the form of E1 T1 and E2 T2. E1 T1 and E2 T2. But to account for E1 T1 and E2 T2, so in the mass procedure we have taken only the moment equilibrium. But if you also take E1, E2 and E1, E2 and T1, T2, in addition to the moment equilibrium, we also need to consider into the force equilibrium. Force equilibrium. So these are the additional things. That means when you solve any method of the slice equation, you must consider both moment equilibrium as well as the force equilibrium. Okay. So the moment you ignore the interference forces E1, E2, T1, T2, then only moment equilibrium is good enough to solve the problem. Okay, so first let us take about the ordinary method of the slices. Just to avoid the confusion, let us try to derive the equation for the ordinary method of the slices. Okay, so here this is the one. Tangent first here. Now here one more assumption is, so in all the previous methods they have taken width, okay, overall width. Suppose if you look at the infinite slope, there we have taken the width in the horizontal direction, but in all method of the slices they have directly taken the length of the slice L, that is inclined length. L is the length CD, inclined length CD. So this they have directly taken. Okay. So now initially I am considering the ordinary method of the slices as per this method. So R1 and R2 they will coincide, so therefore they will not contribute for anything. Now suppose if this is the W, this is the W. So this also acts two forces. So that is what should I say? TA and NA. TA and NA. So this is your alpha. So or theta, whatever you take it, doesn't matter. Alpha or theta. Okay. So now consider the moment equilibrium. Consider the moment equilibrium. Or simply if you take the factor of safety. Factor of safety. So it is straightforward that so your TR by TA. TR by TA. Or else you try to resolve the forces. How do you write the NA and how do you write the TA? In terms of the W? What is NA and TA in terms of W? Anyone? What is NA and TA?
W cos alpha and W
Sir,
sin alpha.
This is W.
Cos alpha.
And W cos alpha.
W cos
And W
alpha
sin
and this is W sin alpha. Suppose if I want to determine the sigma, so this NA should divided by the L into 1. So that is W cos alpha divided by L. Similarly, tau, so which is W sin alpha divided by so L into 1. So as I told, L is inclined length. directly. Okay, don't get confused with the previous one. So this can be written as W, so sine alpha divided by n. Okay, but as we know, our typical conventional equation tau is equals to C plus, so sigma dash tan pi. So tau is equals to C dash plus sigma dash tan pi dash. So this can be written as, so in two terms, suppose if I take this sigma, then this has to be written as C into L. Because if I take the sigma, it is multiplied with the whole area. Or this is coefficient for unit length. So this can be written as sigma minus u. So multiplied by tan pi. So tan pi dash. So this can be written as in terms of TR. So this TR multiplied by L. So this tau can be written as TR multiplied by L. So as for this one. So this is the shear strength. This is the shear strength. Now substitute all these things in the factor of safety equation. In the factor of safety equation. So suppose if I substitute in the factor of safety equation, you will get, so TR into L means, so that is C into L, so into L plus where sigma is W cos alpha by L. So W, so cos alpha divided by L, so minus U into, so tan pi divided by, so that is TA. TA is W sin alpha. W sin alpha. But this should be multiplied with L, na? So this everything should be divided with L. So here if I take directly TA, 1 upon L. Just check it once. Okay, so this is the form of the equation, but now this is valid only for one slice. This is valid for only one slice, but we have so many number of the slices. So therefore, this can be written as the factor of safety is nothing but summation of so 1 by L into so CL plus W cos alpha divided by L minus U into, so tan pi dash. So divided by again summation of W sin alpha, W sin alpha. Okay, the summation is most important because up to this one it is valid only for one slice, but we have assumed so many number of the slices, so therefore we have to take the summation. Now when you take the summation, one important thing that can happen is the alpha, either it can be positive value or it could be a negative value. So accordingly it can contribute as a addition or as a subtraction. Okay, so thereby a slice may contribute as a driving force or may contribute as a resisting force, but which was grossly ignored in case of the mass procedure. And that is the advantage or the merit of the method of the slices. Okay, so this is the equation for ordinary method of slices. So ordinary method of slices. So now this was further refined by Bishop. So that's why called as the Bishop's equation, where he has considered the side forces E1, E2, T1 and T2. So maybe we can't able to finish it up that in our class right now. So I will stop it here. Maybe in the next class we can discuss about the Bishop's method. So which otherwise anybody has any question?
Sir, derivation is so confusing, sir.
Derivation is confusing. Where exactly your confusion?
In sir, factor of safety.
See, from this, is it clear to you? Suppose from this one, if I ask you to the factor of safety, so where is the driving force and where is the resisting force?
Means sir,
So suppose if you take this free body diagram, from this free body diagram, so where is the shear strength component you can derive and where is the shear stress component that you can able to derive?
sir, TR is shear stress and NR is shear strength parameter, sir.
Huh?
We can derive from NR, sir.
TR is shear strength, TA is shear stress. Just recall the previous lectures.
Yes, sir.
NR is the normal component, NA is the normal component. Okay? Yeah. Okay, Vishal, so don't get confused.
Sir, the expression for factor safety is incorrect, sir, because if we see as per dimensionally, so you can see, sir, W, the denominator term is in kilonewton or kilonewton per meter, sir. But sir, here you can see 1 by L in numerator term 1 by L. When we multiply with C into L, then it will get this only C, sir, and C have a kilopascal or kilonewton per meter square.
Okay.
So it is dimensionally incorrect, sir.
Okay, that means I have done somewhere some mistake either in taking here. So instead of the division, it should be multiplied.
And also, sir, you can see W cos alpha by L, which is a kilometer per meter, sir. But sir, U is in kilopascal. How can we minus that thing?
No, this is directly stress component. W cos alpha by L is stress component, just C, sigma component. So that means here also you should take the stress component only, kilopascal.
Sir, I think it should be C plus W cos alpha by L minus U by L. When we take the L as a LCM, so we got CL plus W cos alpha minus U 10 5 divided by W sin alpha.
Then see, suppose if I take the length L, so the cohesion multiplied by L, that is the total cohesive force. Okay, small c is unit cohesion. Suppose if you multiply with the whole arc length, then that becomes the total cohesion force.
Yes,
But
sir,
in
it should be U by L and W sin alpha by L, sir. Because already we have W sin alpha by L.
W sin alpha by L. Man, W sin alpha means how tau term will come in up. The normal force has to come, na. This is normal force component.
No,
And
no,
this
sir.
is
No, no, sir. For denominator, sir. Denominator W sin alpha by 2. W sin alpha by L, sir. For denominator.
oh, okay.
And you have multiplied by 1 by L in numerator. That should not be written, sir.
Yeah, here maybe I got confused. Just see. So tau can be written as TR divided by L or multiplied by L.
Sir, you can see, na, sir. TL is kilonewton per meter and CL is also kilonewton per meter. But sigma is kilonewton per meter square. U is also sigma kilonewton per meter square, which is dimensionally incorrect, sir.
Okay. I will see it. Yeah, there is some mistake. I could see. There is some mistake. I will see it. Okay. So maybe I will look into it. So maybe in the next class I can explain again. Okay. So any other question?